Coach Tobin Anderson is entering his first season as the Fairleigh Dickinson Knights coach. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tony. Great to be on.
Had the privilege of connecting with him and also hearing him at this year's Wooten Coaches Clinic up in the DC area. And a lot of you probably have heard him talk about full court pressing on both Basketball Immersion and the Slapping Glass podcast. But after his clinic session, I wanted to have him on to talk some offense, and in particular, some 5-out offense. Coach, as I mentioned in the intro, you're coming into a new program, which means this is all new for your current players. How have you all gone about introducing and then teaching your new system to the guys?
It's hard, teaching motion offense is hard. It requires, because tremendous patience, and the guys have to understand that it's going to take some time. You teach sets, or you teach continuity. It's a little bit easier because you can put it in, but it doesn't get a whole lot better sometimes. So it's a lot of patience, a lot of breakdown stuff, a lot of film. We've been going now. We started July 5th, and with the summertime stuff, we're going back today, watching probably 45 minutes of film with our guys, just trying to break it down. And so we know that it will take some time. The thing I like about how we play in the motion offense and how I grew up playing in it, and that's kind of my background, is that once we have it in and once we understand it, like next year, guys will get better and better and better. There's a tremendous development of the offense as time goes on, and so I think the hardest parts of the initial stuff right now is like trying to get them to understand that you can just, we're not telling you where to go, what to do. We're giving you some ideas and how to get open and how to play, but not telling you where to go, what to do. And there's a lot more gray area. It's not a black and white thing. There's not you have to do this, you have to do this. And so it's sometimes guys take some time to understand that. So it's going well though. I really like what we're doing, how we're getting better at it. And the good thing for me, I have a bunch of coaches who understand, 2 guys who came with me who really understand what we're doing, so we can teach. And it's a lot of teaching.
How do you live with the sloppiness sometimes?
I don't. My patience is that's not one of my strong points. And so there's days that I'm just like, oh my God, like this is not going well. But we're committed to what we do. Like that's one thing is, like, I think as a coach, like we believe in what we do. We believe in pressing. We believe in run motion offense. Like we know how we're going to play, and there's no going back. There's no way we're going to change it. We're going to tweak things. We're going to tweak things here and there and make some adjustments, but we're not going to go and abandon ship and go do something else we're not used to doing. So we're going to do this. We're going to run motion offense. It's going to happen. It may take a while. My hair used to be all dark. It's going a little bit gray on the sides now. I think that's partly from starting over again here in July. But we're going to get there. We're definitely going to get there.
What did you have as far as a goal for the start of the practices in the fall? What did you want to have in place by the time you got to that point?
So we started this summer, and our whole thing was we're going to teach our press, our defensive transition, our press. We spent a lot of time and competing. Like that's probably the most. We're going to compete, going to play hard, going to learn how the work ethic. We had to establish that first, and so we really didn't touch on as much motion early on as we probably needed to. But we had to get a mindset of competing, playing hard, being tough. And the press takes some time, and the press is a big part of that. And so, we're probably behind with our offense a little bit now. So to me, it's, like when we'll talk about this a little bit, is like, just get a shot, not turn the ball over, play fundamental basketball, play off 2 feet, catch ball 2 hands, be solid with the basketball, and then get a good shot, like find a way to get a good shot and then go pound the offensive boards. So, we know it's not going to be perfect right now. It's not going to be, it won't be perfect in January. But if we can get a little bit better every day, and I've definitely seen progress. We have guys, our big guys now are doing more things that we like, set more flare screens, not clogging the paint up all the time, being harder to guard, and that's been good for us to see that.
One of the things that I've noticed of coaches who teach concept-based systems is that they usually find a way to simplify the quote unquote what's next within the flow of that offense. And you mentioned the rules that you have. Can you talk about how you've pared those down and then how you communicate and share those with the guys?
Yeah. So our 4 rules on offense are, one is get a shot, not turn the ball over, just make sure we get a shot. We're a turnover. We want to force turnovers on defense. And so for us to not turn the ball over is a major part of how we play. So that's 1. 2 is to get a good shot. What's a good shot? What's a good shot for me is maybe not a good shot for you. It's like what's a good shot for us. It comes down to what's a paint touch three, a paint touch, a drive, getting to the foul line, like things like that. So we talk about what's a good shot. Let's just get a good shot, and then three is if you're not open, cut to get open, and then four, if you can't cut to get open, screen to get a teammate open. But as we've talked to our guys about, a lot of times the guy who sets the screen is the guy who's open. So, it's basically get a shot, get a good shot, cut and screen. Simplified, like what you just said, making it, that's just basically what it is. Like, listen, at the end of the day, there's 4 minutes to go. Let's do those 4 things. And if we do those 4 things well, we will be able to score some points. I believe that.
Let me dig into kind of each of those. Usually within these offenses, you're trying to keep a pace.
Yep.
And that's typically achieved by individual guys making timely decisions when they catch the basketball.
Yep.
And NBA, some of them do 0.5 and that kind of thing. When a guy catches the ball for you all, what do you want him thinking and doing?
We tell them that the first 2 counts, 1,001, 1,002, are theirs. So when they catch the ball, it's shot ready, and if you're open, we're going to shoot the ball in range and rhythm. The ball's been swung, all the things the paint touch, the inside out. We've shared the ball. So if it's the first 2 counts are yours. If you're shot ready, we're going to shoot the ball or drive a closeout or penetrate off a cut, something like that. So those are the first 2. After that, you're looking for the action. You're looking for the post. You're looking for a guy coming off a flare screen. You're looking for maybe a ball screen. You're looking for some action after that. And so we don't want the ball to move. We like the ball to move fast early in the possession. Like to cut on the floor. We actually call it fastball, where it's like, let's go side to side as quick as we can. But I don't want the ball to move just for the sake of moving. I want to make sure that we can see what's going on. So the 2 count rule helps us a lot. Is just like 1,001, 1,002. Let's look, see what's happening, see what's going on with your teammates. If a guy's come off a flare screen and I just swing the ball too quickly, we're not going to get the guy open because he's making his read coming off that screen. A guy's got to take a time and read his screen, read his man. So if I swing it too fast, we're not seeing the action. So it's important that we see the action. So that 2 count, if we set a screen, want to hold a screen for a 2 count. Want to post up, hold the, you're going to post up for 1,000, 1,002, then someplace new. Just to be a little bit in sync as far as how we're playing, how we're moving. And now, obviously, there's times we had an All-American center, and we'd say 2 count in the post, and sometimes he'd stay for 3 or 4. We're like, it's fine, you can stay as long as you want to, and there depends on who you are, And we want the ball to move fast. Like if the ball's swung and there's a guy open for a 3, we call it one more shooting. So it's like if that guy's open, he's saying 1 more. Well, of course, the ball's going to swing quickly then. So it's a matter of the guys have to become good basketball players. They have to have a high basketball IQ. You can't play motion and not understand how the game's being played. So, it's not always going to be the same. Sometimes it's 2 counts. Sometimes the ball gets swung quickly. But we want to make sure we see the action and see what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the screening. How do guys know what kind of screen to use within the action?
Well, a lot of it's based on where you're at in the court, right? So the guy closest to the middle of the floor a lot of times should be the screener. Like if we're tight, we're going to set back screens. So if we're tight, we're going to set some back screens with either guard or a big guy. If we're wide, we love setting flares. Ball screens are going to be set by. We'll set a bunch of ball screens. A lot of times it's our big guys, but we'll also go guard to guard and ghost and play off that. But it's got to give a visual and a verbal. The visual is a fist in the air. The verbal is talking about what the screen's going to be. Just telling the guy, I'm going to screen for you, Tony. Tony, flare. Guy talking early. The old early, loud, and often. You talk about on defense, the same thing on offense. I think actually you should talk more on offense than you do on defense as far as calling out what you're doing, your cuts, your reads. And we do set a lot of screens. We want to cut, and cutting is a big part of what we do. So we actually the ratio should be about 3 to 1 on cuts to screen. So we'll still screen, but we like to cut and move and then screen. And the screens become more effective the more you cut. So but the same thing. It's got to be a feel for it. Like we'll watch today. Like we want our bigs when they're wide to set flare screens. They should be flaring all the time. Our guards, I love our guards when they cut through. They should look to back screen. A simple rule is once you're a cutter, you should be a screener, and once you're a screener, you should be a cutter. Just to kind of those are rules we talk about. Like, hey, once I come through on a cut, I make a basket cut. I should be looking to screen, set up usually a back screen if it's if it's happening in the flow of the offense.
Do the guards know? Are they like hunting in particular certain positions to get like that guard to big switch, or are guys like looking for those types of things, or does it more of just come out of like where they're positioned on the floor?
Yeah, I think the term you use there, hunting screens, is a great term. We like to hunt back screens, especially if you're a shooter, if you're a guard who can really shoot the ball, or a driver too. Because if you set a good back screen, guy comes off, your man helps, you catch it, guy you get a closeout, now you can drive the closeout. So we're looking to set back screens. Like guards are setting those things, and even like UCLA screens or flare screens, like those guys are looking for certain actions, obviously. And it depends on who you are. We're not our guard setting a guard to big flare screen is not necessarily as effective. But if that happens, then we'll tell the guard, hey, you should look to slip. If it's a guard to big, let's slip that back screen, that flare screen, and get into something else. And so yeah, they're hunting certain action for sure. And we know, like, we make some inside cuts and things like that. Like, we know if I hit a certain guy who's a great driver and it's an inside cut, he's probably going to drive the ball right off that guy's cut. So it's like there's a certain way of playing we talk about all the time. And I think that takes time. Like, we do 2-on-2 motion every day. We do 2-on-2 breakdown motion, and there's times it's sloppy, but I know if we do it and continue to do it every day, and it'll get better. And by the time we get to January, February, we'll be pretty good in our motion.
Yeah, you mentioned the 2-on-2. Do you build up to 5-on-5, or how do you have you found as effective way to, especially introducing this with a new group?
Yeah, so we do a lot of we'll do a lot of 1-on-0 cuts. Just go through the cuts, like basket cuts, inside cuts, follow cuts, a lot of 1-on-0 stuff. Then we'll go 2-on-2 cuts, and we'll add screens, flare screens, back screen, ball screens. We call them zooms, like dribble handoffs. We'll do a lot of 2-on-0 stuff. Then a lot of 3-on-3. We do a ton of 3-on-3. We'll go 3-on-0 before practice, and then build that to 3-on-3. We'll start practice and go 3-on-0, and I'll say, hey, let's get an inside cut and a flare before we shoot. Okay, we'll do that. Or let's get a back screen and let's get a dribble handoff. Or let's get a ball screen. Let's get some shake action. Or let's get a double flare. So just something to kind of get ourselves going. Then we'll start. At some point in the practice, we'll go, and pretty early, we'll go 3-on-3 and replicate those actions with defense. Because at the end of the day, like, everybody looks good 3-on-0 running offense. Mm-hmm. You have to actually go against defense, especially when you're on motion, because you're reading the defense. The defense tells you what to do. So the 3-on-3 helps us to read the defense. I can kind of break things down more. Like, let's go 3-on-3. Let's start with a flare. Well, I can see that flare, how we're setting it up, how we're reading it, how we're cutting off that. That helps a ton. We'll go 3-on-3, start with the back screen. Same idea. 3-on-3, start with an inside cut, or start with a zoom, and just to get us thinking about and isolate that actual action. Then we'll go 5, and then eventually we'll go to 5-on-5, and we do a lot of stipulations. So we'll go 5-on-5, and I'll say, all right, we can't shoot. We can always take a layup, but we can't shoot until we set 3 flares, or we can't shoot until we get 4 basket cuts, or we can't shoot until we get a post touch. And that makes them kind of think about what we're trying to do here as far as our offense goes.
Yeah, the constraints or the stipulations are great. If you don't put those in, you'll just be an angry coach, because they never do, especially once you work on something and then go to 5-on-5, they never work on that. So this, with so much screening, and even as the possession goes longer and longer, I've noticed that there's like this gravitational force to the paint that just kind of starts sucking in. And then sometimes you just have players that they're just like, I don't know what to do now. How do you help guys with that? And do you have any like phrases that you give to them to kind of like cue that?
Yeah. So, spacing is so important, and spacing makes your offense go. And if you have bad space, I don't care how many screens you set, it's going to be a problem. And like, I think setting screens sometimes causes spacing problems. That's why the cutting is so important. So things we talk about with our spacing is like finish all your cuts, finish all cuts. And we talk about the NBA 3, but finish that thing hard. You should cut as hard to get out as you do to get in. Like, if I'm making a basket cut to score, I don't get the ball, I should get out the same speed I got in, right? A lot of times you see guys, like, they'll make a basket cut and they'll kind of jog out of it. That kills offense, right? So that's important. If you're not sure what to do, stay wide. There's sometimes like replace yourself, or just keep your spacing. If in doubt, if in doubt, widen out. It's a great phrase to use. If in doubt, widen out. Don't be unsure and then be in what we call the gray area, which is 15 feet, 12 feet, hanging in that area there. Where now if I'm at 12 feet, my defender's also at 10 or 12 feet. He's clogging things up. We can't get a cut, a drive, a post touch. And so spacing out, widening out, keeping that spacing, replacing yourself, finishing all your cuts to NBA 3. What else do we talk about? But you're right. As the possession goes along, you gotta keep that in mind. And so we'll stop our film. Like we're watching film today. We'll stop at certain points in the possession. I say, how's our space? How's it look right here? Hey, that's great space. We got 4 guys outside the 3. That's good stuff. Now you'll see we're bunched together, and a lot of that comes from guys who don't finish their cuts. You got to get in and get out. That's so important.
Yeah. As more and more teams are playing gap defenses, coaches are always asking, like, what adjustments do you make for pack line or just a team that kind of sags?
Yeah, so you got to swing the sag. That's what we always say. Swing the sag. If they're going to sag, the ball's got to go side to side. Make them move more than they want to. You have to go back door, even when they're not being overplayed. Like, so well, I'm not going to be open, but it gets those guys out of there. Like, we're trying to create double gaps and triple gaps, and so like we love the inside cut. Because a lot of times in the pack they're forcing middle. So if I'm on the top and I hit the wing and I make an inside cut right in front of that guy, a blur cut they call it in dribble drive motion, I make that inside cut. Now the middle's open. There's a double gap there. They're forcing middle. I can drive in there. Now if the corresponding wing on the opposite side goes back door off that, so let's see an inside cut and a back door cut. Now there's a triple gap there. Now that gap becomes bigger as far as trying to keep the pack line together. So we try to cut more against the gap stuff. We try to go back door, even when it's not there and we try to flare the gap stuff a lot, and swing it. The ball's got to get swung, swing it. And we want to go inside. I think going to the post is very effective against that gap stuff. And then, zones are a different animal. We'll try to run a little bit. We're a little bit we'll gap the zones. We'll go 3 out, 2 in, 4 out, 1 in, depending on what they're in. All this stuff, the pass fake, shot fake, beat 2 and kick, play out of the short corner, play out of the high post, cut from behind the zone, things like that are effective against zones. But once again, the same rules apply. Get shots, get good shots. You won't screen as much against the zone, but you will penetrate more against the zone. Then pound it on the offensive glass and pound it in transition. Those things help. But because it's like if a team's going to play it tight and going to pressure you, you want to set more back screens. You want to set more things, to get them back them off a little bit, set more things up and off the baseline, right? If they're playing more gap, you want to get the ball swinging and moving and more cuts and more trying to distort what they're trying to do a little bit. And that's, how are you being guard? Who's guarding you? Things like that.
About for switching defenses.
So switching is, obviously a lot of slips. When they're switching, they're not watching the ball as much. When you're switching, a defensive team is not going to be. They're predicated on watching their men more. So we're trying to really swing the ball against the switches, really make them move, try to get them distorted, try to get them in a situation where we're slipping, and then drive those things. Like it's kind of it's like a zone a little bit. The more they get caught switching and moving and following guys, we got bigger gaps to drive. But that can definitely cause problems. We're looking for mismatches, but we're not necessarily going to, and I think one of the biggest overrated things is if you get a post guy against a guard. I think guards actually play really good post defense. A lot of times you turn the ball over trying to throw the ball in the post to a guy who's being guarded by it. I'm more on if you get a guard on a big guy, let's attack the big guy on the perimeter and go at him and try to cause problems. There's boomerangs, throw back to him. There's ways of playing against those guys. But you got to get them moving on against. A lot of times when they switch, you tend to get a little bit stagnant. You just kind of they're just going to switch it. Well, you got to keep moving, and eventually things will play out where you'll get the matchup you want or the movement you want.
Yeah, the ball finding the switch rather than you finding the switch, because I think the defense, to your point, like everybody just kind of sits down and everybody on the floor knows where you're trying to get it, and that's where you get like digs on the big or something like that. So this is completely unrelated to offense. And this is probably one of the not the best thing that I got all week, but this is one of the things that we really enjoyed. Can you share first the 80-80-80 goal that you all have? You mentioned very briefly in the beginning, like the rebounding component of it and tying that in with what you guys are doing, both offensively and defensively. So explain that, and then I'll ask you about the figurines.
Gotcha. So a few years ago, about 7 years ago at Stack, we were pretty good, pretty athletic, and I don't think we could shoot. We were like a bad shooting team, so we had to stress rebounding. So like, how we got to win? We got to rebound, and so we had this hustle chart we did, based on back tips, charges, but more based on offensive rebounds, attempts on the offensive boards, box out attempts, and then our defensive transition. So we had a thing for each player, but we also had a team thing. So we had three categories. It was box outs. So we chart every shot. If there's a box out attempt, if we're hitting first and there's a box out, if you're a guard that your guy's not going, you have to at least look and check. And if there's no one there, you got to go get to the nail hole area or go help another big guy. So box out attempts was one. Two was offensive rebound attempts, not just offensive rebound, but the shots taken. Are you making two moves, swim move, spin move, making two moves to get the offensive boards? So we chart every time a guy who's a crasher. So we have crashers and give back guys. If the crasher makes an attempt, he gets he's 1 for 1, right? So we chart box outs, offensive rebound attempts, and then our guards, who are the give back guys, have to be back in their spots on defensive transition. So for us, it's the X's, the top of the key, and then the charge circle under the basket, the hole. We call it the hole. If the ball crosses half court and those guards are in those spots, they get a point, or they're 1 for 1 on that defensive transition. So every time a shot's taken on the offensive end, each guy is graded by their offensive rebound attempt if they're a crasher, or defensive transition if they're a give back guy. Then everybody's graded on the box outs. So if we can get 80% as a team, 80% on box outs, 80% on offensive rebound attempts, 80% on defensive transition, our record from that time forward until last year was something like 94-1 when we got 80. And we won a lot of games, and so, but there's games we lost when our box out percentage was 72 and our offense rebound was low. But we knew if we got to 80, we're gonna have a pretty good chance to win. And that's something we can, besides scoring 20 points, besides hitting a bunch of threes, it was something we could say, hey, this is something that's important to us, that we know it helps us win games. Our guys can see it clearly, and they would get mad at each other. So let's say we were, defensive box outs, we were like 78%. And one guy missed 3 box outs. Well, his 3 box outs got us to 78 when it could have been like 84. And so there's always a punishment for not getting 80. So even if we won and we didn't get it, we'd have we call it a gauntlet, which is a 17 in a minute, and then a minute rest, and a 17, and then a 9 and 30 cross, nine touches in 30 seconds. And the gauntlets are not fun at all. So it was a way of us kind of like, hey, let's get this 80. It helps us win games. And it became a big thing for our program, for our team. And we're going to do the same thing here, same kind of way of charting those three categories.
And then how does that work on an individual basis? And how do you then motivate the guys to do that?
Yeah, so we had a way of each guy, so we graded out, right? And I'm not a math guy by any means at all, but we had a way of grading out. So each guy would have a grade on there. So not just those 3 categories were the team things, but then it was like the individual stuff too. But then it was like, all right, who took charges, who got first of the floor, things like that. So if you grade out the highest, we had a belt, like a wrestling. It's over here. I'm gonna get it right now. Give me 2 seconds. I can't. It's all tied up. I can't give it. It's right over this corner right there's a belt. The belt's right there in that corner right there. So the guy who got the highest score got a belt, and the rest of it got to wear it for the week. Put it in his locker. It was a big thing, and so the guys loved it. We played music. We played John Cena music. The guys would all go crazy. It was a big thing for us to get that belt and have to be the champion. The guards would get mad because the guards didn't have enough stats to get to where the big guys were at. Big guys want to be rewarded too, so we did that. And then one of the cool things we did, we started about being a superhero, right? So if you're a superhero, we wanted to rebound, right? So if a big guy, a crasher, got 8 rebounds, he got a superhero. And I got a couple of them here. Like we got these. There's like a mutant ninja turtle. I'm not sure that's a superhero, but it was a figurine. Here's a Brock Lesnar WWF wrestling guy. So if you got 8 rebounds as a crasher and 5 rebounds as a guard, you got a superhero. And so we had guys within their lockers would have like 10 or 15 superheroes, Superman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, all these little figurines in their lockers. And the guys loved getting them. They were like, no. And so if a guy had like 7, he'd go back through the stats of the films. And actually I had 8, and we'd argue and go back and forth or whatever it was. It was a good way for us saying, hey, this is a big game for us tonight. It's going to be a physical game. We need at least 4 superheroes tonight, and it just became a big thing. And And I think guys like stuff like that, the belt, the 80-80-80, the figurines, like it's just kind of a way of reminding them what's important to us. And like, I was told that a long time ago. It's not what you teach, it's what you emphasize. And
Mhm.
so we found a way of emphasizing it, but also making it like a fun thing where guys enjoyed that. And that became a major part of our program.
Yeah, coaches are always asking about like motivation, competitive type stuff. And like I said, Burton and I love that. We already bought our Captain America, Black Panther,
Yep.
and Batman. So
There's
I
a
think
dollar store. We used to go to the dollar store, and I'd go in, I'd walk in, and there's like a whole bucket. I'd buy like 50 of these things. People probably thought I was crazy. This grown man buying these figurines for, but they go a long ways.
yeah, that's great. That's great. Last thing I want to ask you. So for a first year job like this, what goals do you have? And let's keep it connected to offensively. What are you wanting to see by the time you get to March?
Yeah, so I don't think it's hard to put up numbers right now. It's hard to say. We were like I think we were always in the stack where I was at before in the high average like 85, 87. But a lot of stuff off our defense and our press too. So, but like I don't know if there's a real number goal. I know for the turnover thing is huge for us because we give them 10 turnovers a day. We actually have balloons in our practices, and so every time we turn over, we pop a balloon and say 10. So we like to be around 10 turnovers per game. But our turnover differential being +5, there's a stat years ago about if you were +5 or above in turnover differential, most of those teams won 20 some games. Most of them won the conference championships. That's a huge thing is get more shots. And so turnover differential is going to be huge for us. Offense rebounding percentage will be huge for us because I don't think we shoot the ball great this year. So I think the key for us is as time goes on is the ability to get the kind of shots we want. We got to get the free throw line for us to win games this year. We got to be able to get the ball in the paint to win games. We actually do chart paint touches. That's one thing we do is we chart paint touches. We chart for every offensive possession. But I think as time goes on, I think we'll score a lot of points. I just don't know right now. It depends on how and like sometimes averages are crazy. Like we might not average a bunch to start the year, but when we get into conference season, I think we'll be a really good offense. We don't start conference play until December 28th. By the time we get to like January, the start of January, I think we should be a really good offensive team. And I think our numbers will go up accordingly. So I'm not sure there's a number thing I can put on it right now, but I know that when I see us play, if I can see us pass the ball, moving the ball, playing good basketball, getting good shots, the things we talked about at the start, then I think we'll be a pretty good team.
That's Coach Tobin Anderson of the FDU Knights. Appreciate you taking time for us, Coach. It was as great as I thought it was going to be.
Thanks, Tony. It was great to be on. Awesome always to talk basketball. Anytime else you want me on here, I'd love to be on. Thanks, man.